All right, we're live.
Yes,
Thanks so
yes.
much, everyone, for joining Milestones Motivation and Money with myself, Angel Redcliffe. Tonight, we are joined by Clifton PettyJohn, who is a mindset coach, author, and speaker. And he was also a former guest on the podcast. So
Yes.
today, we're going to be chatting about transforming into your best self. And Clifton, welcome to the live.
Listen, I thought I was in church. I was going to say I felt welcome when I hit the door, but listen, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited to have this conversation on tonight.
So excited to have you here. So I remember when we first encountered each other and you were a guest on the show over the summer. I was just so intrigued, and your
Oh,
episode, Embrace Your Best Self, that's definitely one of the most popular episodes from season 2 of the podcast.
that's what's up.
It's so motivational. So,
Yeah.
where does all of that motivation come from? But even before that, give us a little bit more background on you because I know people are like, well, who is this guy?
Sure. So my name is Clifton PettyJohn. I am your trusted voice of transformation. I teach creators how to transform their lives through embracing the entirety of their best self. And we'll talk about that concept a little later. But listen, I have a background in education. I've worked with children and families my entire life. Where the motivational aspect comes into mind was I hit a roadblock in life where I felt as if there has to be more to life than this. There has to be more to me than this. What I was doing just was not fulfilling anymore. I know a lot of people were being encouraged and motivated behind what I was doing, but I still felt like something was missing. And so many times in life, we look externally for what's missing, but I had to begin to look within. And when I began to look within, I realized that what was missing was me. I had not spent enough time enjoying and embracing who I was. So that's how I got to where I am today, encouraging other people to embrace their best self because that's the story of my life.
That is so awesome. So I'm so glad that you were able to share that because when we think about, I hate when have to transform everything and compare it to the last 18 months, but it's the reality that we're in. When we think about what's been happening like this last year and a half, so many people have been trying to find their
Mm,
superpower, trying to
yeah.
determine how can they become their best self, especially, once we've been sitting at home, we have a little bit more idle time and we're just trying to really understand our true purpose. So, can you give some tips for anyone who is listening to maybe the first step that they should take into transforming themselves into a better you, into a better them?
Yes, my advice is always to sit down with the person that you have spent your entire life running from. Many times we don't develop personal relationships with ourselves because we're scared of some of those conversations, where those conversations might lead us to, or the truth behind those conversations. I embrace my best self, and on my podcast, I do this exercise. I tell you, take a deep breath in, hold it, breathe out. One more time, take a deep breath in, hold it, breathe out. Why? Because it causes you to reset yourself. You gather the energy that you devote every day to trying to change a past that's just not going to change. It's not going to change. It happened. The situation happened. The circumstance happened. It happened. Now I tell you to go to the future, the possibilities of the future. Some of us live in the possibilities of the future. Now pull that energy back. You merge those two energies with the energy that's devoted to the present, bringing yourself present now. And now that is your best self. So many times we're looking for something better that we neglect what's right before us. Why is my present self my best self? Because you're aware. You're present and now you are fully who you are. You're not running from who you are anymore. You're not trying to run to something greater, but you are taking it all in And realizing that if one circumstance, one situation were to change, and I know we said, if I had did this differently, if I said that, if I just had one more conversation, but if you do that, you alter the entire trajectory of your life, and we wouldn't be sitting here in this space having this conversation today.
The words are so empowering. And I'm sure that someone is like, wow, like I need to really start working on myself and really
Yeah,
start
yeah,
sitting and go out walking through that meditation exercise. I think
yeah,
that is so awesome
yeah.
when you take time to breathe, think, and like release or relax and release. But
Yes,
for someone, let's talk about people that have anxiety because
yes,
stress, depression, anxiety, they're
yes.
so real. Our mental health and how
Mhm.
we interact on a daily basis is so real. For someone who's probably suffering from something such as anxiety, how can they actually take that time and start to tune in and be comfortable with something like meditation or a breathing exercise?
First, I always encourage people to understand when I talk about meditation, I think sometimes we get a negative outlook on meditation because we think that meditation, like we measure intelligence, we think of it in one dimension. But meditation is so broad. It's so broad. You know, some people may listen to music while they're meditating. Some people may do the breathing exercises that I just did. Some people just might be sitting still, lost in thoughts. And you have to find what works for you. And then you have to keep at it. You have to keep doing it. You have to keep doing it and trying new ways, because one thing about anxiety is that anxiety creeps up in those silent moments. So it makes you feel like, well, I should feel different. I should feel this by now. No, 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 no. Embrace how you honestly feel. And the best self is all about embracing. Embrace how you honestly feel in that moment. Embrace the reality of what is going on in that moment. Because I have to get you to first embrace the reality of it so that you can begin to see it from a different vantage point or a different perspective. Sometimes we spend so much time trying to block it out and block it out and block it out. And we spend so much energy trying to block out something that's actually there. And then have a conversation with yourself. I believe when we were created, and this is just my personal belief, I'm not trying to push it on anybody else, but I believe that we were created with every tool, gift, talent, and strategy inside of us that we need to answer every question and solve every problem. I believe that. I honestly believe that. So if you believe that, what do you need a coach for? Because sometimes, just like we need a GPS system, when we haven't been somewhere, or we haven't been somewhere for a while, or we haven't been somewhere from the starting point that we're currently at, we need some directions. Now, I know some of us, especially us men, we like to take some journeys sometimes without directions. But about that fourth or fifth time, circling that same road, we start to realize I might need some help right now. And that's how it is, in life as well. You start to realize, like, okay, I need to have this conversation with myself. And sometimes that seems strange, and I know they say only crazy people talk to themselves. You have to understand that the solutions are within you. And any coach that's worth their salt, any leader that's worth their salt will always lead you to trusting that internal voice within you. For those who, believe in Jesus Christ and in the Holy Spirit, I believe it's not just in us, it is us. And we have to tap into that. Somebody might say, well, I believe in the universe. Whatever you believe in, you have to tap into that inner part of you, that inner being of you, that inner knowing of you that is far beyond your current circumstance and situation. And a lot of times that requires us to unlearn some things that just don't even serve us anymore.
Ooh, I like that. Unlearning.
Hmm.
So I that word is so powerful. And of course, with myself being a financial educator and teaching people about financial
Yeah.
literacy, that is
Yes.
something I always try to hone in
Yes.
on. I'm like, whatever you learned as a child, those bad habits
Hmm.
that you picked up on, you have to go through a process of unlearning in order to be
Yes.
successful, in order to move forward, in order to change your mindset. And you know all about mindset, right? But
Listen.
there's so many things that happen throughout our lives, throughout our childhood, things that
Hmm.
our parents teach us that may not always be the correct course of action because they were in the process of learning themselves. And as you become an
Yeah.
adult, you're like, wait a minute, that ain't right. Like, wait a minute. So, and then you have to go through this, like, all right, let me build a whole new circle of trust around myself and my own beliefs
Hmm.
because everything that I was taught is, I don't want to say trash, but just wrong. And so,
Yes.
Clifton, and I know that you can definitely touch a little bit more on the unlearning piece, especially
Hmm.
around believing in ourselves and transforming
Yes.
ourselves to our best self. So, what should someone do other than I'm already spilling the beans, but what should someone do to start unlearning, those negative traits and unlearning like all of their bad thoughts that they probably thought about themselves?
Sometimes it's as simple as environmental as well. Like you have to get around new crowds. I have some friends that are getting into entrepreneurship. And one of the questions they asked me was about getting advice from people. And I said, opinions, everybody has an opinion, everybody has advice. But make sure that the advice that you are getting is from an entrepreneur. And here's why. Because I can't give you advice about being an entrepreneur if I have an employee mindset. Now, I'm not knocking an employee mindset, so please understand what I'm saying. Employees and entrepreneurs think differently because we have to move and navigate differently. And if you're coming from a space of being an employee, entering into entrepreneurship, that's a whole new scope for you. So you need people that are going to help you tap into that new dimension that you're experiencing. So you can't get advice from the space that you used to get advice from. And then you have to understand when we were kids, sometimes they were just trying to tell us stuff to keep us safe. I just got to tell you this because this will keep you safe. Well, the reality is, if we're ever going to be successful in life and reach far beyond our wildest dreams, we have to leave that safety net. We always talk about going from our comfort zone and going from safety nets. We have to leave that. So we have to unlearn a lot of those patterns and those behaviors. And I'll even take it a step further with relationships and friendships. Some of the dysfunction that we learn as children, we can't carry that into relationships. Why? Because it'll keep being that same repeated behavior. We have to experience. In order to experience something new, is the simplest thing I've ever heard. You have to try something new, and you have to be willing to put yourself out there in new communities in new spaces, meet new people, experience new things. And I always say travel, travel, travel. Because one of the things that I have learned the most is that when you begin to travel, especially to other countries, and you learn their customs and their belief systems and their values, it gives you a broader aspect of life. And I feel like that's what's missing sometimes with us. I know with me, I grew up in a small little town in a small little state. Where I grew up, they call it slower, lower Delaware. So come on, I mean, that's what they called it, and the mindset and the movements of some match what they called it. But as I begin to travel and meet new people and have different experiences, then it began to speak to what was within me, ignite what was within me, stir up what was within me, excite what was within me, and now I could begin to see it more because I had different experiences.
Wow. So you said a few things. So one, I want to go back to Delaware, this whole nickname, because a few years ago, I had the opportunity to work in Delaware, and
Okay.
I was there for 9 months on and off. And
Okay.
so this is slower in what?
Now, which part were you in?
Wilmington.
See, that's not the that's you were in northern Delaware. See that's not the slower one. I was in southern Delaware, and that's
Ah,
what they call it, lower, slower
lower,
Delaware.
lower. Well, you know what?
Mm.
That's we're gonna have to have a whole nother conversation just about Delaware. So,
Yeah. Yes.
but Clifton, you talked about, just really like walking through that process of
Yeah.
unlearning. And I come across so many people who are, in their late 30s, in their 40s, even 50
Mm.
years old. And instead of taking the opportunity to learn new things, or go through that process of unlearning, they'll
Yeah.
continuously blame their childhood or early adulthood on misinformation. And I said, only
Yes.
you have the power to turn your life around and make that change. So for someone who's stuck in that mindset of, I blame this on my upbringing, I blame this on my parents, it's like, okay, now that part of your life is over. Like, it's
Yes.
up to you now. Like, what do you suggest for someone who's in that frame of thinking?
I have the privilege of co-parenting my little cousins. Okay, they're 4, 3, and 1. And one of the things that I instill in them on a daily basis is, who are you responsible for? And they'll tell me, I'm responsible for myself. And I have a 4-year old. She's going on 25. She has a little doll named Violet. So she says, to be condescending, she said, I'm responsible for me and Violet. Okay. But the reason why I'm instilling responsibility in them is because sometimes, depending on how our family was and the framework that we adapted, we have this belief that we are responsible for everyone else's success before our success. We are responsible for everyone else's behavior at the expense of our own. We are responsible for everyone else's ability to prosper at the stake of our own prosperity. But I want them to understand that your first priority is yourself. So to that person, I would say, I know that for years you've been going through the same thing over and over again. Me. That was me. I was that person. It wasn't until I reached the age of 31 that I took a step back and said, okay, now I have to live my life for me. And it became hard for me to say no. But the more I said no, it became easier. And the more I said no to others, I began to say yes to me. And then I begin to take a step back and begin to realize, wait a minute. There are dreams, goals, ambitions, desires, wants that I have that I haven't even taken time to explore. So then I had to take a little journey back. When did it start? What was my mindset? Why was my mindset this? Okay, so now I know what my mindset is. I've identified it. I've identified the pattern of behaviors. I've identified the cycle. And now I need to do something to interrupt the cycle. The cycle is not going to be interrupted by you doing the same thing every day. The cycle is not going to be interrupted by you sitting and visualizing a greater future. Now, understand, I believe in visualization. I believe in it. I believe in it. I believe in it. But guess what? After you visualize it, you have to begin to position yourself for it. And that's where many of us, we stop at that visualization and we dream, oh, I see myself in a bigger house. I see myself driving my dream car. I see myself owning my business. I just see money, 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 money all in my bank account. And I want all that for you. I want it for you, and I want that same energy brought right back to me as well. But it's not until we write the vision, make it plain, and as we begin to write it, now we begin to become it. And as we become it, we begin to exercise it on a daily basis, and we'll begin to see that process. This is why I launched the courses that I've launched, the course that I launched, because I know some of you are listening right now, and you're already in 2022. Yeah, that's right. 22. You're already there. Some of you are already in 2025, because this year has just been a challenging year for you, and I'm over it. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm just ready when that ball drop. That's gonna be my year. No. Right now, this present moment, we're going to finish this year strong and carry that momentum into the next year. We're not going to try to develop momentum in the next year. We're going to carry it from now. Why? Because we're going to get up. We're going to continue to dream. We're going to continue to visualize. And now we are going to position ourselves to not just look like what we're dreaming about, but to be what we're dreaming about.
Those are some powerful words. And so a lot of what you said can relate to manifestation and
Yeah,
affirmations. And
absolutely.
I tell people all the time, you have to write down your vision. You
Listen.
have to continuously take that time and make sure that you are progressing on your goals to reach whatever it is that you envision, whether it's, reaching that financial goal or reaching that goal for that new job, or even transforming your life, right?
Yep.
But the goal setting, the manifestation, the affirmations, like I'm a firm believer. I remember writing my first vision board in
Yeah.
2008. And I had no introduction to vision boards and manifesting and affirmations until that particular time. I still have that board to that day. But I remember
Hmm.
put everything I put on my board eventually came to fruition. And then every year I make my vision board, what I want my life to be. And you said something a few minutes back as far as, especially the example of someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, surrounding themselves with other entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
We just did this conversation 2 weeks ago on networks and how your
Wow.
network is your net worth. And
Oh,
my
yes.
saying is, you're most like the top five people that you surround yourself with.
Hmm.
So I said, if you want to transform your life, if you want to transform your best self, maybe there's someone that you look up to who you should be
Yes.
trying to get into their circle, or changing up the circle of the people that you're consistently speaking to, having a little bit more positivity. Or if it's financial goals, I'm like, look, we need to sit over here at the table with the, the high dollar crowd,
Exactly.
have some money conversations, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Clifton, you mentioned your course as well. So I want you to tell us about your course and what you're working on.
Sure, sure. So I have a course that's out right now. It's called Inner Brace Your Best Self. And the reason why it's called Inner Brace, as we've been talking about embrace, I want us to go within and begin to build, embrace ourselves, secure ourselves from within, and then everything else can flow from there. Sometimes we spend so much time trying to flow from somewhere externally that we still find ourselves dry as well. I don't want you dry. I want you to, as I said earlier, finish this year stronger than you've ever finished before by inner bracing your best self. And we're going to talk about being a safe space for you, because we talk about safe spaces and I value safe spaces. Listen, I'm big. I'm a safe space for a lot of people. You talk to me for 5 minutes and it's things I'm telling you, you just start telling people, just start telling me their entire life story. It's been like that since a child. I understand it. I value it. But one of the things I had to learn how to do was to be a non-judgmental safe space for myself. Those conversations I wouldn't have with myself because I was judging myself. Then we talk about our framework. I have a session. It's an acronym, FUCK, framework. And the reason why I use that acronym, it's an acronym, y'all, I promise you, okay? Because I want us to destroy the frameworks that we have adapted or adopted from other people, because a lot of the things that we frame our life around is from other people. Then we go on to talk about a more fluid type of framework and teach you how to establish your own framework for your own life, your own core values and belief systems. We talk about all of those different things within this course. It's a 7-week course. You have access to me throughout the entirety of that course. I'm telling y'all, it's dope. I would not sit on here and talk about it if I didn't believe in it. But I want, as I keep saying it, I want us to finish this year strong and carry that momentum on into the next year. Yeah, I do apologize, but I always like, how do I explain that? Because some people be like, yeah. So,
Like
but
you're
it's an
catching me off
acronym.
guard. I'm like, what?
It's an acronym, guys. It is an acronym, and it's
Oh
all. I'm telling
my
y'all.
God. Now,
Yeah,
I'm supposed to be Clifton before my, where are we going with this?
I'm telling you. I'm telling you. It talks about the F is for face the reality of those frameworks. The U is for unlearn. The C is for what was the C? Okay, and I can't remember what the C is for, but the K. I'm sorry, the K, because I really have thrown you off. I'm sorry, but the K is for know. Know that that's not yours, and know what is yours. C is be clear about it. Be clear that this is not yours, and what is yours, and then the no. The K is for know
I'm
it.
probably throwing you off with the laughing.
It's okay. I'm serious. It's
Oh
okay.
man.
Yeah.
Oh man. So, so is the course something that's ongoing? Are you doing cohorts and groups? Can you give some more details?
Yeah, sure. We're doing a cohort. The cohort starts next Tuesday. I only can accept 10 per cohort. So I'm going to be doing one beginning next Tuesday, one beginning next Thursday. So you have a choice on which one that you sign up for. But I'm only accepting 20 people. That's why I'm telling people, make sure you hurry up and you register. Also, those who register, I'm offering a scholarship. It's a $97 scholarship towards that investment. You just have to use the initials AJP. Those are the initials of my mother. My mother was a social worker. Our home was everybody's home, so I use that scholarship in honor of her.
Okay, so cool. So you all can check out Clifton's course at transformyouinstitute.com and also learn more about him at cliftonpettyjohn.com. But we're not done yet. So
Okay.
Clifton, I want to talk about your book. So I know
Sure.
you have this amazing book from stagnation to transformation.
Yes.
And of
Yes.
course, anyone who will be tuning in or watching the replay, they probably heard us talk about it on the podcast. But for the new people who you'll be introduced to through this stream, tell us about the book.
Sure. So a few years back, I wrote a book called From Stagnation to Transformation, and it's a mixture of my life story intertwined with some stories from former clients and friends that I had conversations with, because I found that we all had kind of hit that space where we felt stagnant. And some people look at stagnation as not producing. But one of the things I address in the book is you can still produce and still be stagnant, because you can be producing at a level or in a dimension that's disrespectful to who you are and who your creator is. So the purpose of the book is to get you producing where you need to be producing and checking yourself in certain areas to see, can I become more productive in this area? Am I overproducing in this area and causing a deficit in another area? So we deal with the core areas of our lives, from the financial to the spiritual to the social, family, business, all of those areas. We wrapped it up in this 21-day, we call it a coaching actuation, because it's designed to provoke you to action. It is not a chapter book. It's kind of like a daily devotional, but there's work behind it as well. And I tell people this, and I'm going to tell your audience this as well. You purchase the book, you apply the principles in the book, they don't work for you. You show me proof that you've applied these principles and they did not work, I'll give you 100% refund, because I believe that much in the principles outlined in this book.
100% refund. So there's very few people.
100%.
I know very few people who would even offer something like
Mhm.
that, but I can say just from our conversations and the initial interview on the show, I was convinced. And I actually before your episode came out, I had a friend visiting and I said, you have to listen to this guy. And we sat,
Oh
it was
wow.
past midnight and we listened to your podcast episode and she was
Oh,
like,
thank you.
oh, this is like really good. And I
Oh,
said, look, you
thank
just
you.
got the preview.
That's what's. I appreciate that.
But Clifton, so many people are probably, I see people hopping in and out and leaving comments in the group. Let's go back to some original questions that I asked you previously,
Sure.
because
Mhm.
for people who need a little bit of motivation, what's
Yeah.
probably the first step in motivating, for or actually getting motivated? Because I consider myself a highly motivated person. We can tell that you're a highly motivated person as
Mhm.
well. What can someone else do to kind of pick that pace up?
I think that getting to know yourself will help you in the area of motivation because I used to be very quiet, shy. I still am, to be honest with you. I'm very quiet. Like people do not believe how quiet I am when I when they see me on camera. But I really did not know who I was. Like I really did not know who I was. So I always look for motivation externally, but it was in getting to know who I was that it began to motivate me to understand, there's greatness inside of you. There's not just greatness inside of the people all around you, but there's greatness in you. Most of us at times lack motivation because we just don't see the reason behind it or the purpose behind it or the value behind it. Like I don't really value what I do. I don't value. I just go and work a little job. I just go and do this. I just go, and we have to take the just out of it because there's something that you're doing on that job that's connected to a greater purpose in your life. And when you tap into that, I'm telling you, you won't need anybody else to motivate you. Now you'll get a little refreshers every now and then. You'll like to hear other people. I love to hear other people get me hype and get me excited, but it'll come first from you because you will start to value what's inside of you. So the first step for me is taking time to get to know you. And if you're a person, Cliff, I just don't even know how to get to know me, you can call me. We can have that's a complimentary conversation we can have. You can text me at 302-208-9440 and just text me, say help, and we can sit down and have a conversation and I can help you with that process.
Nice. Now, Clifton, I want to go back to you. You had a very powerful message when you were on the podcast, and you talked about, in early in this particular live, we talked about showing up as your authentic self and
Yeah.
unlearning. But on the show, you said something I thought was so profound. You said to accept your past to
Yeah.
protect your future,
Yeah.
and taking back that power of telling your story before anyone else can. Give some insight into that. Although it may seem a bit self explanatory,
Mhm.
I just want to hear it in your words. We want to hear it in your voice.
Sure, sure. So many times in life, we've all done things that we are ashamed of. I'm hitting some of these triggering words because these are the words that keep us stuck in places. We don't want many people to know it. Some of us are taught, don't let nobody see you sweat. Don't let people learn that about you because if they learn that about you, then they'll hold that against you. We're so caught up in, an image. And one of the things that I had to do was to tear that image down and embrace me, like embrace the ghetto side of me. There's a ghetto side of me and there's a professional side of me. And I had to learn how to merge those two together and be willing to show up, in those two and not worry about, the thoughts and the opinions of others because I think it was really when I got divorced, okay? And I don't know if anybody out there has ever been through divorce, but divorce is probably one of the most defining times of your life. I remember being divorced, and I remember thinking, I don't even remember what I like. I don't remember what I dislike. Like I was so programmed to do things with two people that now I'm having to learn how to do this thing all over again. Now, with me, divorce was supposed to bring shame as well because nobody, I mean, you're divorced? Some people look at it that way. But it brought new life to me. And I began to realize that that was a part of my story. And when you realize it's a part of your story, to get you, as I said earlier, sometimes we're trying to erase things from our past. But if you were to erase one thing from your past, you wouldn't show up today as who you are. And that's how we have to see it that way. Like, we really do. And I had to see it. Like, I just went through a cohort with my identity strategist, Michael Weston, Your Supernatural, Your Supernormal. www.yoursupernormal.com. I plug him everywhere I go because this man helped me refocus in life and in business. And as we begin to talk, I realized that I was holding myself hostage to a decision that I made at the age of 14 on the baseball field. It still was causing me to navigate life as if I still was on that baseball field as a 14-year-old. And that was so profound to me because I realized that I hadn't identified that as a traumatic moment, but I was moving because it was a traumatic moment to me. So I had to go back to that moment, own it, own that it happened, own the experience that happened, everything that happened to me, everything that I allowed. You know, 'cause sometimes we like play like, I don't know why that happened. I had to go back and own why things happen and bring that with me here to the present. Not just me come to the present and leave that there. No, 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 no. When I tell you to go back to your past, you got to bring that stuff with you because that's what's needed for you to be your best self. You need all of that.
Right. And so Clifton is so powerful, but the experience that we go through in life, those experiences do shape us, whether we like the
Yeah.
experiences or not.
Mm-hmm.
And you said two things I want to touch base on. So first you mentioned divorce. And I think that is like it's a topic or something that people go through that is often like shame for some particular reason.
Yeah.
And it makes people like stay in these marriages that are not working only
Yeah.
because people don't want to tell people like, hey, I'm divorced. But I have a few friends who've sort of been in that particular space like over the last 2 years. And when you said, learning to do something on your own or learning
Yeah.
what you like, that is so real. Like I was having this conversation with someone and they mentioned, they've never had like their own
Mm-hmm.
household items. They're like they
Mm-hmm.
never had their own place to live. They never had their own bed. They have to figure out the things that they like because they were always making that decision with someone else. And I think
Yes.
when you go through a situation like that, such as like a divorce or traumatic life event, that also sort of helps you sort of make this transformation. And sometimes it's
Yes.
good, sometimes it's bad, but I have seen sometimes transform into their quote unquote best selves.
Absolutely, because now you become who you are. One of the things I realized, and a lot of people I talk with in marriage as well, is they've forgotten who they are because of the dynamic of that relationship. You know, that the dynamic of that relationship is like they almost become absorbed into one person, and that's a concept that a lot of people have. Like they'll lose their own identity within it. And I don't believe that's healthy. Having been a person that experienced it, I don't think that's healthy. But at the same time, I'm so grateful that I experienced that because it led me to discovering my best self. It led me to searching within to find out and have those conversations with myself and be able to communicate to other people. No, I really don't like that. And they'd be like, well, wait a minute, but you used to. No, no, no. Really, honestly, I never really liked that. But it was just something we decided on. So,
Right?
yeah.
Like, wait, that was a we decision. That wasn't a me decision.
Absolutely.
Right. So, Clifton, I know we've been chatting for a little bit here, and I would love to keep the conversation going, but I know we both have some other priorities and things to do.
Yes.
Can you give us one piece of advice that you would give to anyone who is just coming across you for the very first time?
Sure. My go to advice, and Nike, if you are out there listening and you are looking to sponsor me, listen, I'm right here. Let's work together. Nike and Gatorade. Gatorade, I'm always drinking, you guys. So if y'all are looking to sponsor, here I am. But I use this Nike analogy all the time. Nike says, just do it. Just do it. And I always encourage people to just do it. Now, I know that goes against what a lot of people say. A lot of people say, well, first you might need to sit with yourself and just. No, 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 no. I want you just to do something new, something different, something exciting, something that might be on your bucket list, something that you might have never thought, dreamed, or imagined that you would do, because I want you to get that adrenaline rush. I want you to experience that adrenaline rush. Why? Because that's the same adrenaline rush that's connected to when you discover your best self. I want you to get used to that level of an adrenaline rush, because that's the dimension that you were created to exist in, to live in, to thrive in. So that's what I would say to them. Just do it. Find something that you would not normally do and just do it.
Thanks so much. I love it. And if you get the endorsement from Nike, I'm gonna need some royalties for the
Listen,
show.
because for the show, absolutely, because I said it on your show.
So for those of you who are tuning in or just tuning in, make sure you go back, watch the replay. Make sure you share this awesome conversation and post any questions. Reach out to Clifton on his
Yeah.
website. So CliftonPettyJohn.com. You can pick up his book From Stagnation to Transformation on Amazon. And if you're interested in enrolling in his course so you can learn how you can be your best self in
Yes.
making some sort of transformation, make sure you visit the transformuinstitute.com, reach out to him on social media, and gosh, reach out to me if you have any show suggestions. But we're doing this
Yes.
every week with a different guest. So make sure you tune in. And for those of you who are new, make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. So we're on all podcasting platforms, and you can find us there. You can scan the QR code on the
I
left for
like
Apple
that.
Podcasts, on the
Yes.
right for Spotify. And we thank you all so much for tuning in.